Right. Looks like there are a couple of new people this week. Sherry, you're new this week, I think. And Andrew, were you here this week? Were you here last week, Andrew?
No.
And Sherry, is this also your first week? She isn't here. Okay. So this is our third lesson of elementary programming. Today we're going to go briefly through what we did the first couple of weeks, and then we're going to dive into our new project for this week. So Andrew, do you know the programming platform Scratch?
Yes.
Yeah. How much experience do you have with it?
I don't know how to explain. Like a little bit.
Okay. How long have you been doing it for?
I think I've done it for a week or something.
A week or so. Okay. And which grade are you in?
Fifth grade.
You're in fifth grade?
Yes.
Okay. And Sherry, are you there? No? Okay. Oh, Cherry, can you unmute your microphone? Or does it not work? Okay. Which grade are you in?
Who?
Cherry. Oh, she's in grade 5 as well. And do you know Scratch, the programming language? How long have you been doing it for? She says she did it in grade 3, but she stopped. Okay.
Yeah,
Let's
it's kind of
briefly
like
go.
that's me too. I did it in grade 3 and then stopped.
Okay, cool. So you will probably recognize most of this script, which we wrote the first week that we met. This was for a cat that walks back and forth upon the stage, which is this panel. When we click the green flag button, it walks towards the right, hits the corner, then turns back. And here we used a few basic building blocks of Scratch. For example, in the Events tab, we learned to use the green flag button, which starts a script whenever the user clicks green flag. We added a few motion blocks, and we learned how to use a couple of basic control blocks, which controls the order in which commands are executed. So we learned the forever loop, which repeats a block of commands in order. And in the following week, in week 2, we learned how to work with multiple sprites. We had 3 in our previous project. We played a bit with costumes. We learned how to modify their centers and use code to switch them. We learned how to run scripts using keyboard events and make Scratch detect when the user presses a keyboard button. And furthermore, we learned how to make sprites sense each other. So we learned to, for example, code a simple game in which the main character, controlled by the keyboard up and down buttons, can kick an object, in this case an apple, and the apple senses whether it is hitting another sprite or the edge. And now this week, we're going to do something a bit more complicated. It's this. So here's how it goes. There's still a player character. Oh, there's sound as well. So let me share sound. Okay, there we go. So one similarity you will notice between our project this week and last week is that the user uses the keyboard buttons to control a sprite, which walks in a certain direction. This week it's left and right. Last week it was up and down. You'll also notice that every time our character takes a step, it changes costume, as with last week. But in this week's project, you'll also notice a few things new. For example, we added a backdrop, so it's no longer a blank white screen. We made a couple new sprites. And here's the big thing. When the sprite moves to the edge of the screen, the background changes. And here's another scene. You'll notice a few things here. There's a fruit sprite that keeps appearing at the top, dropping down, and disappearing. And whenever the fruit hits the player, the score increases by 1. And we also added a third character, the bat, which, if you get close to it, moves towards you and produces a sound. And if it touches you, it makes the score go down. And you can walk to the edge of the screen again to go to the previous scene. And yeah, that's it. Hello, Angela. You just joined? Oh, okay. All right. So does anyone have any questions about this before we start? Any comments?
No.
Okay. Then we'll start by creating a new blank Scratch project. And as with last week, we're going to delete the preset Scratch cat character. And we're going to choose a new sprite from the Choose a Sprite window. And that's for this. You can choose anything you want. And I'm going to choose, let me see. Yeah, the same thing as this, which is this character. We can go to the Costumes tab to see the preset costumes. This time, our sprite has 3. And if you play these in sequence, the sprite will look like it's walking. So let me make this a bit smaller, say 75%. Yeah, that's better. Place it at the left side of the screen. And now we click on backdrops. Here you can see another button, choose a backdrop. This allows you to add any of a number of backdrops from a preset library to your project. So if you look at this project, our demonstration, it has two backdrops. The one with the beach and the boardwalk, and the other with the forest. And we can do something different or do the same thing again. I'll do, say, this and this. Okay. And of course, if you click on backdrops at the right corner of the screen, and then click on the backdrops tab at the left side of the screen, you can see all the backgrounds that your stage currently has. We can delete the blank ones, so we're left with these two. And if you can notice here, the brightness of the background has been reduced to make it look like it's nighttime. So we're going to do the same thing here. And to do this, we're going to use a few blocks in the Lux tab. There is one block that says set color effect to 0. So that's one of the visual effect blocks that Scratch has. If you click on color, you'll see a drop-down menu that gives you a few options. You can experiment with these. If we leave this at color, we can change the number here to, well, anything to make the stage change color. For example, if we write set color effect to 20, click here, that happens. To 30, click 70, 100, and back to 0, which is the original. Fisheye, on the other hand, distorts the image. So if we set this to, say, 10, distorts a bit. 70, distorts a lot. Change it back to 0, and whirl. That also distorts the image in another way. Pixelate. You can play around with these. For now, we're going to use the brightness effect. And putting a positive number here will make it brighter, and putting a negative number will make it darker. That is too dark. Negative 20 is good. Yeah. We're going to snap a wooden green flag clicked block to this to make sure it sets these visual effects every time the program starts. And if you want to, we can do the same thing for the player sprite. When green flag clicked, it's also in the Lux tab. It's further down right here. Set brightness effect to -20. And finally, you can program the keyboard to make the scratch move left and right across the screen. So basically, we're aiming to make it do this. You can leave out the sounds for now. So I'm going to leave you on your own to do this. It'll be pretty similar to what we did last week with our sprite that moves vertically, but instead of moving up and down, the only difference is that now we're moving left and right. So I'm going to give you, say, 3 minutes. You can work on your own and let me know if you need any help. Okay? What size is the sprite? Well, you can make it any size you want. Here, I made mine size 75. It's in the toolbar here. All right, are you all done? Andrew says he's done. Uh, Sherry says she's done. All right, let's go through this. Same thing as last week. In the events tab, we use right arrow and left arrow. When right arrow key pressed, we change X by 10. When left arrow key pressed, change X by -10. And in both cases, in the Looks tab, we switch to the next costume. Let's see how this looks. 10 is a bit too much. Make it 5. -5. There. And if you saw our demonstration, the sprite actually flips over when we want it to go the other way. So we're going to do the same thing here. We're first going to set the rotation style to left to right only. We put that under when green flag clicked. When it's going to the right, we point in direction 90, and when it's going to the left, we point in direction minus 90. That looks better. And now we're going to add in the sounds. So in the sounds tab, we'll see that this character has a default sound pop. But we don't need that. We want the footstep sound, which we can get by going to the sounds library. And we can search for footsteps. That's quite long. We're going to delete most of it. So we can drag across this and click delete. Looks better. We can crop out the first half. Okay. So now we have the sound of a single footstep. And every time the user presses the right arrow or left arrow to make the sprite move, we want it to play the sound. So we go to the sound tab. We drag start sound to both of these. That was a bit much. Oh well, it doesn't matter. So we're going to leave the lamp for now and go straight to the other scene. So first, we want Scratch to switch backdrops whenever we move to the edge of the screen. And then we're going to program the fruit ladder and the score system. So in order to make the backdrop, in order to make the backdrop switch whenever the character reaches the edge of the screen, we're going to create another script. So it's going to continuously detect whether it's touching the edge of the stage. And when it is, it's going to switch to the next backdrop and go to the left of the screen again. So this time we're actually not going to use if touching edge. Instead, we're going to use something like if X value is greater than or less than a particular value. So let's see how to do this. So when green flag clicked forever, so I will always check if there's a block here that says X position. And we go to the operators tab and find the less than block. So we call the shape of this X position block a number or text block. A small round block like this can either represent a number or a piece of text. And if you see a small round slot like these are also slots for number text blocks. So you can either drag one of these here or enter something inside. Here we're going to put the X position block inside here. We're going to use one less than and one greater than. We're going to do this first. If X position is greater than, say, 220, then next backdrop. This is in the Looks tab. We do this. And not only do we want to switch it to the next backdrop, but we also want the sprite to move to the left. Say, go to x minus 200. And we're going to make a second if loop inside the forever loop that makes it check the other condition if it's touching the left edge of the screen. That is, if x position is less than, say, minus 220. In that case, we do next backdrop, and we go to the right side of the screen. Go to x 200, say. Let's see how that looks. That looks pretty good. And one more thing, when we click green flag, we want it to return to the original position. So we put one here. We go to x minus 200, or no, x minus 160, y minus 72, when green flag is clicked. All right, so now we're ready to add in the fruit platter. We can go to the choose a sprite screen. Now let's see what we have here. We have bananas, watermelons, and the platter. And if we go to the choose a sprite window, we'll notice that these are actually separate sprites. So we can click bananas for now. And in costumes, we can add the costumes for watermelon and for fruit platter. Now we have a sprite with 3 costumes. These are all a bit large, so we can size it down to, say, 60. So when we look at this, this sprite seems a bit unusual because if you look carefully, it seems like at times there can be the sprite can be 2 places at the same time. When we first entered the scene, there was a banana and a watermelon on the stage at the same time, but those were actually from the same sprite. So how we do this is using the clones function. In the control tab, at the bottom of the tab, you'll see a few blocks. One of them says, when I start as a clone, another says create clone of myself, and the third says delete this clone. And we're going to use all 3 today. So first, we want the sprite to detect whether our player is in the second scene or in the first scene. It only activates in the second scene. And in the second scene, we want it to continuously produce clones of itself. And when these clones start, they will go to the top, fall down, and disappear when they either hit the player or reach the bottom of the screen. So here's how we do this. When backdrop switches to jungle, which is the second backdrop, repeat until it is not the second backdrop anymore. Or we can say repeats until not name of backdrop equals jungle. And in the Lux tab, there is a number or text block that represents backdrop name. Click here. So if this happens, so when the backdrop switches to jungle, repeat until backdrop name is not jungle. And whatever we put in here will be repeated as long as the backdrop is jungle. And we wanted to do create cloud of myself, then wait 1 second. And now we're ready to program the clones. So the clones are the actual copies of the fruits that fall down. So when I start as a clone, we use the repeat until block again, because we wanted to repeat a certain set of instructions until it touches either the player or the ground, or the backdrop switches to something else. So we use the OR command in the operators tab. We use 2 of them actually, because we wanted to terminate whenever one of 3 conditions is true. So repeat until not backdrop name equals jungle, or touching the sprite, or y value is less than, say, negative 150, 120, 100. So now it looks like this. And what do we want it to repeat? Well, we want it to fall down. So change y by -5, -10. And also rotate. Oh, and don't forget, we want it to be at the top of the stage at a random X position whenever it starts as a clone. So go to X random Y 160. And to make it go to a random X position, we go to operators. There's a pick random block. And we can modify it to say -220 to positive 220. And put that in X. And finally, when any of these 3 conditions is true, when the backdrop has switched, when it's touching the sprite, or when it's touching the ground, we want it to delete itself. Let's see how this looks. Oh, we forgot to hide the actual sprite, because we need to do that, and so that it's not showing here, and only the clones should show. So hide this, and it looks, drag the show block here, so that it looks like this now. And now let's try it. That looks a bit better. We forgot to use the other three costumes. And we can do something similar using the pick a random block by we use a switch costume to block. And instead of picking a value here, what we can do is we can use the pick random block again. And this time use pick random 1 to 3. So in this case, it's not switching a costume to whatever we say the costume name is, but it's switching to whatever we say the costume number is. But it doesn't matter here because this is a pick random 1 to 3 block, so it's going to give us either 1, 2, or 3, and there are three costumes in total. Whoops. Looks like I shouldn't have done that. Let's just say the parent sprite is going to switch to the next costume every time after it creates a clone of itself, and the clone is going to be in whatever costume the parent sprite was at that time. So now this looks better. And final step, add in the sounds. Oh, and the banana already has 2 built-in sounds for us. This doesn't sound good, so we're only going to use this. And we're going to create a new sound. Is it this? Nope. Effects. You can explore these as well. Crunch. Yeah, it wasn't this. So whenever it hits the sprite, it plays this. And whenever it hits the ground, it plays this. And we're going to add it here because whenever it hits the sprite or the ground, it's going to exit out of this repeating loop. So we're going to use 2 if-then blocks. In one of them, we put if touching the sprite, and in the other one, we put if y position less than 100, which means it's touching the ground. If it's touching the sprite, go to sound, start sound, crunch, which means it was eaten. And similarly, we put another one of these blocks in here. If it's touching the ground, then start sound. Oh, wait, no. This should be bite. There we go. We put these two together and put them right before they delete this clone block. Now let's hear it. And did we do something wrong? Let me check. Nope. Okay. Yep, that looks good. And so now we're going to add in the score. And we're going to do something we didn't do before. We're going to the variables tab on the left. And so these are all the built-in Scratch variable commands. Have any of you ever worked with these before? If not, let me introduce them. So variables are basically your way of keeping track of numbers or text in Scratch. So here, we want to keep track of a number score and display it on the screen at all times. If you look here, there is already a built-in variable called myVariable that can store anything. You don't have to use it. You can delete it or rename it. We're going to rename it to, say, score. Okay. And we can click the check mark left of it to display it on the screen. So the default value for all variables is the number 0. We have 4 commands. We can set it to another number or text. We can change it by 1 or by any other value. We can show it on the screen and we can hide it from the screen. So when the green flag is pressed, when the program starts, we always want score to be 0. Set score to 0. Oh, so this is not a cloud variable. A cloud variable in Scratch is when your project is uploaded and shared in Scratch, you can use cloud variables to keep track of information even after the program has stopped. And if you use a cloud variable, then if someone else is also running this program and if someone else is running this program the same time as you are, then if you make a change to this variable, then the other person who's running this program will also see that change. But in this case, we don't need it here. It's going to be an ordinary variable, and it's going to reset every time we click green flag. So when green flag is clicked, set score to 0. And every time it touches the sprite, every time it eats fruit, the score is going to change by 1. Change score by 1. Pretty convenient. Put it here. Let's see how that looks. We start as usual. And you can see that the score changes every time the character eats a fruit. And if we click stop and start again, it's going to be 0. So here's the last part. We're going to program the batch. And let's briefly review what the batch does. When we go to the second backdrop, the batch is here in one corner, and it doesn't move unless it's within a certain distance to the player. And when it is, it's going to move towards the player. If the player moves, it will move as well, unless the player is a certain distance away from it. And as you've just seen, if it touches the player, it will play a sound, and the score will decrease. Let's see how to do this. We're going to choose a sprite, and instead of that, let's say this looks fun. Let's see his costumes. You want it to look like it's flying. So we can get rid of these. When it's flying, we can make it alternate between these two costumes. And when it's touching the sprite, we can make it look like this. So let's program. As with the fruit platter sprite, we're going to make it sense when the backdrop switches to the second backdrop, which is called jungle. As with last time, we're going to use the repeat until block with the same parameter. Repeat until the backdrop name is not equal to jungle. And we're going to make it detect if it's close enough to the sprite. As usual, we're going to use an if-then block. Here we're going to use, so inside the if-then block, we want if distance to sprite is less than, say, 100. Let's see. And the distance to block is the sensing tab. It says distance to mouse pointer, but we can make it your sprite. And if this is true, then we want to make it move towards the sprite. So point towards the sprite and move, say, 5 steps. And of course, we want it to hide after the background changes back and show when the backdrop is the right one. And we forgot to do one thing. Whenever we click the green flag button, we always want the game to start as a first backdrop. So when green flag clicked, switch backdrop to Castle 2, which is the first backdrop. And we can do this in any sprite, it doesn't matter. We can put it in the background as well, because the stage can also hold code. Yeah, we can do that and remove it from here. Oh, 1 second. We want it to hide when the green flag is clicked and show only when it goes to the other backdrop. Where did it go? Let's see. Repeat until backdrop name is not jungle. $100 might be a bit too small. Let's make it 200. Yep, that's it. And that was too fast. We can move 1 step at a time, and we can make it smaller as well. Oh, that was too small. 40? 50? Yeah, that's good. And we don't want it to rotate at all. So click on direction, click to not rotate. And also, we wanted to start, say, here, whenever the backdrop switches there. So we drag it here, and we drag a go-to block right here. See how this looks. This is too small again. That. And Cherry wants to see the banana code again. Yep, this is a bit complicated. I can share this project and put the link in the chat. And you can all refer to it. And the last few steps in the dinosaur are to make it animate and to sense when it's touching the sprite. So to animate it, we're going to switch between the first two costumes, as we've seen. So we saw how to do this in our previous week's project, where we made our player sprite switch between two of its three costumes while it's walking, and switch to the third costume only if a specific thing is happening. And here we're going to do the same thing using if statements. And instead of using two if statements, we can actually use a if else statement. So we want this to say, if the costume number is, say, 1, then make it 2. Otherwise, make it 1, which is easy to do. We use the equals operation. We go to the Looks tab and choose costume number. If costume number is 1, then next costume. Otherwise, set costume to the first one. And put this right here. This should be outside the other if loop so that the dinosaur looks like it's flying even when it's not close to the sprite. And finally, if this would be a bit too rapid, so we're going to make it wait, say, 0.005 seconds every time and make this move a bit more quickly. See how it looks. 0.005 seconds is not enough. 0.01. Let's see. Still a bit too rapid. 0.02. Move 5 steps. Five steps is a bit too much at a time. Yeah, that's good. To make this a bit less difficult, we can make the dinosaur move towards its original position when it's not close to the sprite. To do that, we simply switch this if-then statement to an if-else statement. So if it's close to the sprite, then we move towards it. And otherwise, we're going to move towards our original position. So point towards Can't do that. Say glide to 145, 132, which is its original position here. And put the rest of the code under it. See how that looks. Yep, that looks good. And finally, we're going to make it do the biting and score change effect whenever it hits the sprite. So we simply add another if then block in here. If it's touching the sprite, then makes the score go down. Change score by, say, -3. And play a sound. We delete the default pop sound and scream. This is better. So whenever it's touching this, we start the scream sound and change score by -3. Let's see how that goes. That's a bit too rapid. We wanted to wait a bit more in this if statement so that after deducting points, it waits a few seconds before it plays the sound and changes score again, so that what we just saw doesn't happen. So we can put this in a new script. We start another script with the same repeat until loop. We remove everything in it. Well, actually, we can just use the forever loop and put this in. And make sure to put the wait, say, 2.5 seconds block inside the if then loop. That's much better. Yep, that looks pretty good. And so that's our project. That's our project for today. You can go to the link I shared in the chat to refer to our project at any time. And you can also, for homework, add in the light in the first scene, which is this. A couple things you'll notice. It has 2 costumes. It's in the unlit costume if it's far from the sprite, and it's in the lit costume when it's close to the sprite. And you'll also see that the brightness effect of this sprite changes when it's close to the sprite. So you would use something similar to the set brightness effect block to change its brightness effect whenever it gets close to the sprite. And also, this costume isn't actually one of the costumes that you can find in the Choose a Sprite window. This was actually something I found on the internet and edited to make a Scratch costume. And you can download the images for the costumes from a Google folder and upload it into Scratch to make the costumes for this. So here's our challenge. I'm going to send the links to the costumes in the chat. 1 second. These two links. So the costumes for the sprite are located in these links. There's one for each costume. When you're on one of them, 1 second. Click download. It will download the image to your computer. And in one of the sprites, go to costumes and click upload. Then select the costume you've just downloaded. Of course, you'll need to create a new sprite for this. You're going to add in some code of your own. And hopefully it works out well. So you can always refer to my demonstration project here. And if you need help if you need help adding in the lamp, you can consult the demonstration, which is located here. And finally, I'm going to add all course materials for this lesson in a Scratch folder, which will be located under this link. So in a moment, you'll be able to see the projects we did today, as long as the demonstrations for our previous and future projects. And that will be all for today. Good luck with adding in the lamppost, and I look forward to seeing you next week. All right, see ya.